Hi, so owing to a spot of post-op recovery, I am catching up on various things I've been meaning to watch for a while, and one of those things has been Prey, which is actually a Predator film, which I was able to watch on Disney Plus here in the UK. I really enjoyed it. It's very different. I think it's quite a departure from the last Predator films, which I've sort of watched, skipped over a bit, but I do, in my defence, present this, which should indicate to you the length of time that I have been a Predator universe fan. Because back in the day, in I want to say late 90s, let's say late 90s, Dark Horse started to expand the Predator and Aliens universes. Bit of Terminator thrown in there as well, and there were various crossovers. But basically, the lore was expanded vastly beyond what was available from just the films at that point in time. So, some of the other reviews I've seen of this film have basically said this is like a Dark Horse version of Predator because it's set much earlier than the other movies were. And the one singular, well, okay, there are two slight issues I have with this film, aside from my general very much liking it. Once I got past the slightly Pocahontas kind of vibes of it, which I think is refreshing in many ways. It's maybe laid on a little bit heavy, but if you're expecting a full-on raging action movie all the time, that isn't what this is. This is, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's a more mature approach to what is normally an action slash horror sort of approach to the Predator film universe. And I think for its, given what happens these days with these sorts of films, it makes perfect sense. And I understand that it's very, very good on the Native American sort of side of it as well. It's very, very authentically done. So that is a major tick in the box. From a sort of positivity side of it culturally. The issue that I have with it is that there are inevitably points in it where it feels the need to call back to the original Predator films. If you've watched it, you'll know exactly which bits I mean. If you're a long-term fan of the Predator universe, you'll get what I'm saying. I don't even need to explain it because you'll just go, I know exactly what he's going to say here, and he just said it. Okay. My bigger issue is with the ending. I personally think the ending is unfortunate. It's an unfortunate choice they made. Completely understand why they did it, because again, it's a callback to Predator 2. But my issue with it is this, which kind of pulled me out of the whole thing. This establishes quite clearly in comic canon what happens when a predator loses a fight and doesn't self-destruct. Okay? A predator that self-destructs obviously leaves no evidence behind. There's nothing left to do. That's it. This predator, at the end of this movie, did not self-destruct. Therefore, other predators should turn up to collect his remains. Now, that's hinted at in the one of the sort of cave drawing type pictures, which I have a slight issue with. That was a bit too Disney for me, but anyway. So one of the issues there was that they showed a number of predator ships, coming in towards the tribe. Now, I'm going to put two and two together here, and I'm going to say that means that the tribe got clobbered by predators, which is a bit of a shame because the rules of the hunt don't stipulate that that should happen. And I'm making that deduction from the fact that in Predator 2, that same flintlock pistol that the heroine gives to the chief at the end of the movie is given to the victor, the human victor, at the end of Predator 2. That means that the predators had to win that pistol back from the humans to give to that human as his trophy for being successful in his hunt in defeating that predator that didn't self-destruct. So that means that at some point, and in fairness, it might be that the Native Americans do not get killed off by a vast swathe of predators. Maybe they're just left to hold on to that pistol, and it's another hunt, another legitimate hunt that then results in that pistol going back as a trophy for the predators to then give out again in Predator 2. But you see here, in this Batman comic, and spoilers for this ancient Batman comic from 1991, in this comic you see Batman here, as you can probably see, is successful against the Predator, big shock, and the Predator commits, his version of Harry Kiri, whatever the right phrase is, ritual suicide anyway, for losing the hunt. And Batman is then gifted his sword as his trophy for his success in the hunt. So on that basis, for that pistol to be in the Predator's possession means that they took it from someone at the end of a hunt in order to give it back to a human who was successful in a subsequent hunt. So for it to come and be collected by the Predators in the first place, it presumably means that the inverse of what we would expect to happen happened, which means that at some point either she was killed with that pistol on her, and then the Predators took it as part of their trophy, not just her head, presumably, or it means that somewhere down the line someone took the pistol from the tribe, was then killed by a predator in a hunt, and then the pistol came back to a human in Predator 2. For me, it kind of took me out of this movie and kind of dumped me in the other one, and then it set my little head running because I know that one. I was like, well, why did that just happen? Why is it that she's got that now and the Chief's got it, but then the Predators end up with it? So that, to my mind, suggests that, well, either there's going to be a sequel, or they are going to get clobbered at some point in time, which seems unfair, given that she's only just won the hunt in the first place, and it wouldn't be the Predator style. The Predator style would actually be to come back down, give them a gift of some description for winning the hunt, and then take the remains of the Predator and then go. So at some point I would have expected to see that, but we don't see that. So it's just one of those things. It's a niggle. I understand why they did it for long-term followers of the franchise. Yeah, completely get it. Fair dues. I get that. I also personally have a niggle with the design of the Predator, in so much of his skull is so different. Now I understand there's been this introduction of the concept of the Predators kind of amending themselves somehow along the way, which is why in the more modern movies we've seen slightly different variants of Predators and maybe sort of subspecies and this sort of idea. In which case I kind of understand why this one might look a bit different, but it's quite radically different in some respects. I understand why his weapons loadout would be different, because I think that they would tailor themselves to the level of the local inhabitants, and they'll have done scans and stuff. They know they're pre-industrial, broadly speaking, at least where they're going is pre-industrial. So they wouldn't need things like plasma casters and so on, which I think is why you see a lot of use of bladed and spiked weapons in this film, not so much the plasma casters that we're used to seeing, which I think is a nice touch actually, because as soon as you see those 3 red dots, you assume it's going to get messy, but actually it doesn't, because he's only throwing spikes around effectively. So fair dues, that I think was a clever choice. And equally his look as well suggests that, it kind of matches the fact that he's gone back, from our point of view at least, it's an earlier time period, of course. So, if he isn't a modern Predator, then that kind of makes sense in this context. But when all said and done, it is a very good film. It's inevitably a little bit tropey, but it also does some nice subversions of expectations as well, which I appreciate. And again, if you're familiar with the franchise, you'll get what I'm talking about. So it makes sense from that point of view. So yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised. I'm glad I made the time to watch it. I think it was a really brave thing for them to do. I don't even know if it's getting a cinematic release or if it's just going to go straight to streaming. I think it should have a cinematic release. I think it would look brilliant on a cinema the way they filmed it. So I'd love to see it in a cinema. but I haven't really noticed if it has been released on the cinema. So I fail to see why they wouldn't. But, you know, I guess we'll just have to see on that front. So, yeah, so I assume that you've watched it if you're watching this, or add that, or you just don't give us stuff about spoilers. But anyway, those were my thoughts. I'd be interested in your thoughts on the whole flint pistol position and how they've chosen to do it. Apologies if you heard the dog whining in the background. I've slightly shut him out of the room and he's not happy about it. So, all right, cheers for now.